Napatawad ka niya. Napatawad ka niya.
Pwede ba natin ulitin ngayon?
Sinira mo lang daw ang buhay niya. Maraming salamat, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Never na rin siya kumatid ng concert.
Ganon.
Tatin pero malayo na, no?
Tsaka si Cheo, dito lang ako kulunod.
Mas wild ba dati? Mas wild ba yung audience
Nung
dati?
90s.
Wala cellphone eh.
Wala siya.
So, 100% ng attention nasa iyo eh.
Hindi rin.
Hindi. Walang takot yung tao gumawa ng kagagawa.
Oo.
Ngayon, matatakot ka eh. Sige,
Pero
tanong mo
ngayon kasi less likely, nung huli kong note ng concert, almost 60%, 70% nakataas yung cellphone nila. So, sa halip
Tumatok ka
na...
nun eh. Wala, hawak ko eh.
Although may ibang, okay. Kasi syempre, dami rin keyboard warrior, diba? Tapos,
Oo.
ang boring naman dyan, yan. Pero pag wala ka kasi doon, hindi mo rin pansin na, right, saglit mo lang kita, o nakataas yun. Pero karamihan doon, parang 15 seconds, baba. Tapos, nagsasayawan pa rin naman eh. So, kung wala ka doon, huwag ka.
Oo. Tama naman. Pero
Sorry
Gets
mo.
parang
Nag-sorry,
judge
no?
dun sa video. Sorry naman mong,
Ano lang, best gig na pinaka-recent na na-experience ninyo? Kayo.
Singapore, tugtog kami.
Oo.
2 weeks ago.
Saan venue?
Yes. Esplanade.
oh, ang ganda.
Bakit siya?
Sunset, tapos naglabasan yung mga kabayan. Tapos yung mga, literally, tumanda na sila. May mga dala silang children na naka...
Oh.
Anak, huwag kang lalapit. Tatalon yan, na. Dito lang sa Nakakabitin.
Meron pa pala kayo.
Oo.
Oo naman.
Maraming salamat, Sir Rapes.
So,
Hindi na to mauulit muli.
kasi tapos na yung 2025, sa next year na to eh. Mauulit ko rin. Kasi December 30 to eh.
Sana po ay na-shock kayo. Sana po nag-enjoy kayo sa kwentuhan natin. Pero kung hindi naman ay ganun talaga eh.
May mga first time na hindi masaya.
Sa maniwala ka sa hindi, ito na yung pinaka-respectful namin kasi naisip ko to. Ikaw na yung pinakamataas na banda na na-invite namin sa ngayon.
Oo, so,
Pagkatapos mo gawin yun.
Kung alam mo lang. Kung alam mo lang.
Sign of respect
Sign
daw
of
po
respect.
sa tribe. Meron po sa Bacoor eh. Maraming salamat.
expect. Pero sorry, last question lang. Kasi may pinapatanong din si Jeannie, yung partner ko. Paano yung relationship na kasama mo sa banda yung wife mo? Parang ganun pag-aaway ba? Wala tayong bahisa tonight, guys, ha? Nag-aaway kami. May ganun
Kasali
ba?
lahat yun.
Kasali lahat.
Kasali lahat.
Oo. Kasama sa... Kasi ang ganda dito, yung sa pod team namin, si Jasper pati si Leta, isa sa video, isa sa sound, in a
Actually,
relationship.
nag-away na kami, naghiwalay na kami.
Oo.
Pero magkabanda pa rin.
Talaga, ang galing. Paano yung magkatalikuran ngayon?
Walang pansinan.
Walang pansinan.
So, nangyari na nag-spin siya ng gitara tapos binato niya sa'yo. Di ba?
Offstage. Mas malaki bass.
Oo nga, ba't mabigat?
Tsaka pinukul talaga, may target.
Nakakatawa. Nakakatawa kasi hindi. Nakakatawa kasi yun yung gusto niya tanong kasi para kami nasa comedy tapos meron din kami prod team na in a relationship. So sa lahat sabi ko nga, baka kami lang yung kumpanya nag-hire ng in a relationship kasi hindi ka dapat kukuha ng mag-inagay pag nag-away, masisira yung prod team. Ganun. Oo.
Well, this is proof na...
Pwede pa kaya, Leta, Jasper, kahit mag-away, pwede pa rin magtrabaho, ha?
Parang
Pupunin
pinapagaling.
ko lang ng base, Leta. Pero thank you, yun lang yung pinahabol ni Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
May last question pa raw pala. May atraso ba sa inyo?
oo nga.
Napatawad na namin.
Ah!
Yan ang lesson
Eh,
natin kayo.
napakaganda kasi last episode for the year. Tama naman.
Napatawa ka.
Eh, sila lang talaga yung sumagot.
Oo,
Hindi nyo ka nasagutin eh. Pero ako lang.
hindi, tama naman.
Kaya maraming salamat again, Sandwich.
Thank you. Labas ako dyan.
Salamat, Cheers!
Thank you, guys.
Cheers! Happy New Year!
More power sa inyo, Sandwich. Thank you. At
Kami pumunta, yung Ben nasa rally kami dito pumunta.
ayan.
Ayos.
Salamat.
Walang kwenta ang pinaglalaban niya.
Hindi
Ganyan.
nyo ganda.
Ano kayo?
Magkakakwenta lang yan kapag tayong lahat ay tumanak ang dugo.
Yung gagi. I-introduce ba na ni Roger ulit?
Yes,
Oo.
ito.
Bumawi ka, Roger. May yakan.
Ayos ako naman.
Ayusin mo na.
Okay na.
Ayan, gagi ka.
Ayan.
Alam ka. Ayun na. Alam ka. Parang sinakal, ha?
Pahihirap na alcohol si Sir Hits.
So, ano pinulong sa'yo ni Raymond nung niyakap ka?
Ayusin mo. Hindi, ito, palakpakan natin ulit dahil para sa banda ni Mark Abayadan.
Lagi lang mo.
Hindi, palakpakan natin, David guys.
Thank you again, Raymond mo. Salamat sa inyo. Kailin, Mike, salamat.
Pera. Nalimot ko nga music naman di ay na patay ta basig mga copyright na pod ta. Wow.
Burger King Whopper. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And he said, let there be light. And there was light. Then darkness, the firmament, the oceans, plants and trees, animals that fly and slither and swim. And last, but not least, male and female. The book of Genesis. It's a nice story, of course. One that we're all undoubtedly familiar with. But could it be true?
Some people say that they believe that there should never, ever be any conflict between science and religion. But if we accept Genesis as being historical, which according to faith, of course we do, then we need to ask the other realistic questions. How and what really happened?
While mainstream scientists are understandably skeptical that God, as described in the Old Testament book of Genesis, created the earth and everything on it in only 6 days, there is surprising evidence to suggest that the second book of the Bible, Exodus, is based on historical fact.
In the book of Exodus, the children of Israel have been enslaved in Egypt, and God has told Moses to go and set his people free. Moses demands that Pharaoh lets the people free. Pharaoh refuses. And so God empowers Moses to do plagues against the Egyptians. And finally, the Pharaoh relents, lets the people go.
Israel's origins as a slave nation is not the sort of thing people would make up. So even many of the most critical historical scholars of the Bible would say there's something to this. We do know from Egyptian history, both from ancient texts and archaeological evidence through excavations, that somewhere around 1700 to 1650 BC, there was an influx of foreigners into Egypt. They spoke a dialect very similar to Hebrew. And when Ramses II comes along in the 13th century, he decided to move his base of operations to a new city that he named Ramesses, P. Ramesses, the House of Ramses. And according to the book of Exodus, that's why I would place this event in the 13th century, sort of as they finally get fed up with years and years of being abused and used to build Pharaoh's projects.
But if the book of Exodus was based on real events and people, then wouldn't there be some kind of physical evidence left behind? A relic of their journey out of Egypt that would validate this incredible story? According to some scholars, such a relic could actually exist. The Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant is probably one of the best kept mysteries in the world today. We know, according to the biblical description, that the commandments which Moses brought down from Mount Sinai were placed inside the ark, as well as a portion of the manna which they collected in the desert, and Aaron's rod, which had blossomed with almonds in the great test of the tribes. It was a box of gold, which had inside it a box of wood, and another box of gold with a golden cover.
The Ark of the Covenant represents the giving of the Torah at Sinai from God. It's the holiest object that ever existed in the Jewish tradition. And there are people who, because their belief somehow needs to be palpable and physical, feel as though if they could see it, that would prove God's will in this world.
But if the Ark of the Covenant was not only real, but still exists, where could it be?
Where
According to the Hebrew Bible, the Ark was once housed inside a secret inner sanctuary of King Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. But after the temple was destroyed around 586 BC, the whereabouts of the Ark and its precious contents became unknown.
One tradition, of course, is that it was simply destroyed by the Babylonians when the temple was burnt and melted, and that's the end of it.
However, because the Ark never showed up again, people have often wondered what really did happen to the Ark.
For centuries, the search for the Ark of the Covenant has consumed both archaeologists and Bible scholars. If it were ever found, it would not only prove that the biblical accounts of the book of Exodus were based on historical events, it could also unleash incredible power.
I'm a great believer in trying to find out as much as we can archaeologically about what happened in biblical history and the way in which we can validate it, as long as we're intellectually honest. Some things we'll be able to prove, some things we will disprove, and much we will never know.
In recent years, some scholars and theologians have suggested that the Ark isn't lost, but was deliberately hidden, kept away from those who might wish to exploit its awesome power.
For many, to find a relic like the Ark of the Covenant is extremely important. It was viewed as God's throne, and these ideas are most likely connected to scriptures that refer to the Ark being carried into battle and the enemies are scattering before them.
It is said that the ark housed kavod, or glory of God. Now, this, in quote, glory of God was not something symbolic. It was something actual, something tangible, something energetic. What are we missing here in the biblical understanding of this mysterious box? It was clearly far more than just a religious icon. There was a technology involved, and that is what makes to this day one of the greatest mysteries of our history.
Cleveland, Texas. In this small town, located on the outskirts of Houston, stands the King of Saints Church. On the surface, it looks like any number of churches scattered throughout the region. But inside, there's something that makes it stand out from the rest. Within this church is a remarkably accurate reproduction of the Ark of the Covenant.
My father and I built this replica of the Ark of the Covenant because it makes the scripture come alive in a new and unique way, because you're not just reading a description in a book or seeing a picture. This is 3D and built according to the specifications in the scripture. Exodus chapter 25, Moses gives the blueprint of detailed instructions on how to build the ark. And that's the instruction we used to build this, with all the dimensions. The Bible describes two cherubim, which are winged sphinxes, and they're facing each other, as we see here according to scriptures. And the cherubim had the body of a lion, the face of men, the wings of an eagle. In other depictions of the Ark of the Covenant, you see humanoid angels with wings, or cherubs. But this reflects the description of cherubim as we find in the book of Ezekiel. And they look upon the mercy seat, which is the cover of the Ark of the Covenant. Our congregation sees it as a unique way to show that God is King and Lord through the Ark, which represents the kingship of God, and also represents a way that God spoke spiritually into his written word. We have this replica of the Ark of the Covenant as a symbol of that importance.
Now roasting at Kenny's, the new snow cheese roast, made with flavorful cheese marinade with
Throughout history, the Ark of the Covenant has been one of the most sacred artifacts in the Judeo-Christian tradition. But just what exactly is the Ark?
Well, the Ark of the Covenant is fascinating because it's the most important ritual object that Judaism has ever had. The Ark is first introduced scripturally in the book of Exodus, where God gives Moses instructions to build an ark for carrying the Ten Commandments. It has very detailed instructions. It should be 2.5 cubits long, like 1.5 cubits tall, and 1.5 cubits wide, and it's plated with gold inside and out.
The ark was covered by this gold lid called the mercy seat. Now, it's also known as the throne of God, mainly because we have a passage in 1 Samuel 4:4 that mentions how God is enthroned between the cherubim. So this indicates to us that this mercy seat was in fact understood as the throne of God.
The Ark of the Covenant, for a time, was the center of the Israelite religion. It represented the presence of the Hebrew God, Yahweh, on earth. Meaning, if there was a question that needed to be answered, the Ark was the place that you would go and petition God. If you went into battle, the Ark would be taken, marched into battle. As long as the presence of God, represented by the Ark, was with Israel, they couldn't be conquered. The Ark of the Covenant was God in the midst of the Israelites.
Southwest France. This mountainous region is more than 500 miles from Rome and almost 2,000 miles from Jerusalem. According to yet another legend about the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark was once hidden, not in Rome, but in a located in this remote area.
11.
The Chateau de Montségur.
Throughout France, there are legends from north to south about the Ark of the Covenant being in the land there at different periods of time. One of the potential resting sites of the Ark of the Covenant in France was on the mountaintop of Montségur, and it was a stronghold of the Cathar people. Now, the Cathars were a Christian sect that lived in France in the Middle Ages, and they had strong spiritual convictions. So there is an idea that because these treasures that were brought back from the Holy Land were spiritual, and the Cathars were deeply spiritual people, the church may have brought these treasures, including the Ark of the Covenant, to the Cathar people.
The Ark of the Covenant in southern France? It's an intriguing possibility, one that in 1936 caught the attention of the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany, Heinrich Himmler.
Himmler and Hitler were both obsessed with obtaining relics. During the occupation of France, there were a number of Nazi brigades that were actually dispatched throughout the region of the Pyrenees into Montségur in search of the Ark of the Covenant. There are still tracks in the mountains today from where the Nazis were mining essentially in the mountains looking for these potential artifacts. They truly did believe that the Ark may have still been there in those mountains.
Heinrich Himmler was obsessed with occultism. You have to remember that the occult had a massive influence on Nazi ideology. And it may seem crazy, but he sent people out on these quests to find these sacred items.
The Nazis never found the Ark at Montségur. But what compelled them to invest so much time and effort into finding it? Were they simply trying to find a magnificent golden chest? Perhaps. But there are many who believe that the Nazis had an ulterior motive.
The Ark of the Covenant was particularly coveted by Heinrich Himmler because it possessed enormous power, and it was carried by the Israelites in the long exodus to the Promised Land. So when they fought their enemies in order to establish their homeland, the Ark of the Covenant would be carried before them and would emit terrible power, smiting their enemies. It brought down the walls of Jericho simply by its presence. It emitted thunderbolts at the enemy. And in the eyes of a Nazi, what was not to like? They believed that this would usher in the 1,000-year Reich.
If you watch the movie Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, all that magical stuff the Ark does, Steven Spielberg didn't make that up. That's all in the Midrash. That's all in Jewish legends. It's like a nuclear weapon. So by legend, the Ark had these tremendous powers, and that's why people wanted to take it with them into battle, because it was powerful and dangerous.
According to the story that we have in the Bible, when the Ark is coming up to Jerusalem, this cart that it's on hits a bump or something and it starts to tip. And this nice guy named Uzzah reaches out to keep it from tipping over, but because he touched the Ark, God strikes him dead. So everybody's terrified of this thing. It has so much power, it can just zap people dead.
Struck down by the wrath of God? Perhaps. But there are some who claim that there is a more scientific way to explain this extraordinary account from the Bible.
The Ark of the Covenant is a fascinating story and concept, for that matter. You have in the biblical scripture a description of a device. It's got specific dimensions, specific materials, and specific structures and shapes. So what the device is for is a whole other question. But it sounds like a technological device to store energy, like a modern-day capacitor, because it is coated with a conductor, gold. Then there is another material inside that is a non-conductor. It's got another layer of gold on the inside. And that's exactly how we build capacitors. There's a conductor, an insulator, then a conductor. And then on top of the Ark are these wing-shaped pointing structures. If you look at modern-day Tesla coils and Van de Graaff generators, we always put a probe on the top of it, like a little needle or a little metal arm, so that lightning can jump off of that, the point of which the energy is transmitted from. This sounds a lot like the Ark of the Covenant.
It has long been believed that the Ark of the Covenant had some type of electromagnetic energy, a power that is not supernatural or spiritual in nature, but very much technological. So the powers that it had, the abilities that it was able to manifest to this day, is still a mystery.
High in the mountains of northern Ethiopia, a mile and a half above sea level, lies the city of Lalibela. Each year, tens of thousands of worshippers make the arduous journey here, despite its remote location, to visit 11 of the strangest holy places on earth.
Lalibela is one of Africa's most mysterious sites. It's a complex of 11 monolithic churches that are hewn right out of the bedrock. Most churches are built on the surface and they're built from the bottom up. Whereas in Lalibela, they're built from the top down. It's the only place on the earth that has cathedrals that are built underground as opposed to being built on the surface. A very curious thing at Lalibela is that there are some very unique carvings there, very interesting symbols that are carved into these churches. Do they mean something if you put them together?
In the church of St. Mary at Lalibela, there is the Star of David, and this, along with a number of other mementos and designs, are extremely indicative of the presence of the Knights Templar. This has suggested to many that they may well have been present during the construction of the churches at Lalibela.
Now, the Knights Templar were a very interesting religious order that became very powerful during the Middle Ages. But what people don't often realize is they were very interested in building, in geometry, in numerology. And so they were once very practical and pragmatic, and also very spiritual and mystic.
The Knights Templar had a great amount of knowledge in masonry, architecture, and building structures. Now, it's debated as to whether or not the Knights Templar would have been in Ethiopia at this time. But there's some interesting evidence that an Armenian geographer at the time documented seeing men with red and white regalia, blonde or reddish hair, long hair, which could indicate that he's talking about Templars. So it could be that the Templars themselves were the ones that built Lalibela, or that they helped King Lalibela build the site.
Could Templar stonemasons have influenced the construction of the churches at Lalibela? And if so, for what purpose?
If you look around Lalibela, there are altars there that have spaces in them that would precisely fit the Ark of the Covenant, which was approximately 4 feet in length, 2 feet wide, and around 2 feet in height. It has been suggested that the rock-cut churches at Lalibela were built to house the Ark of the Covenant.
The lost Ark of the Covenant, the gold box which contained the original 10 Commandments, could it have been hidden at Lalibela centuries ago?
During the Crusades, we know that the Templars occupied the Temple of Solomon. And so it could be that they were the keepers of the Ark of the Covenant. And the more you look at Lalibela, and given the fact that we see that it's built underground, you start to think, here we have these churches that are hewn out of these megalithic rocks. They're built like defensive structures. They have all kinds of interesting symbolism there that indicate Templars. And you start getting the impression that this is actually some kind of defensive fortress to protect something.
Mana to? Yun na yun.
The North Apennines, Italy. Here, in the mountains just outside Florence, a young Leonardo da Vinci spent much of his time examining the mysteries of nature. Because his parents were not married, he was excluded from the prestigious academies attended by many of his contemporaries.
Florence, the Platonic Academy is reformed and this Institute of Learning comes about. Now we know that Leonardo da Vinci is not allowed to enter this academy.
This is a young man who's pretty much left on his own in some ways for up to 19 years, traveling around the countryside. He was looking at rocks, he was studying birds, he was looking at the flow of water, he was studying mountains. He was literally immersed in nature. No other artists in the Renaissance really showed that much interest in the natural world and the surrounding world.
He strives for knowledge, he strives for information. He is able to create a body of knowledge which is on par with the body of information which the Platonic Academy as a group of beings is able to put out.
It was also in the North Apennine Mountains that Leonardo is believed to have discovered the cave that he wrote about in his journal.
The story of the cave, it's very likely that it happened around 1480, since it appears that that's the moment at which this is written in the Codex. The fact that Leonardo chooses to record this encounter with the cave, I think indicates that it had a significant impact on the artist psychologically.
But although the exact location of the cave and the date Leonardo discovered it remains unknown, there are many who believe that it may provide the key to understanding the source of the artist's incredible genius and the answer to the mystery of what happened to him during his missing 2 years.
He goes inside the cave, then he disappears. And it suggests to me time travel portals. He's opening portals or stargates and beaming to either the past or the future and then returning to the present time.
In history, you have certain people, like Leonardo da Vinci, whose genius is just so incredible, and the visions that they have. And in many ways, it's like they're able to see the future. And they're not going to just influence the world then. But what they're going to do is going to dramatically change the world forever. And you have to wonder where people get this kind of inspiration. And in the case of Leonardo, he was able to see things and invent them, in a sense. Things that we weren't going to have for hundreds of years.
Is it really possible that Leonardo da Vinci may have obtained his incredible creative and scientific knowledge as the direct result of an extraterrestrial encounter? Or might Leonardo have fallen through a time portal, one which allowed him to actually visit the future? A future where robots, helicopters, military weapons, and other amazing machines actually existed, and which the artist would later try to duplicate. Some ancient astronaut theorists believe the answer can be traced back to work he did on the Annunciation and the significance of his so-called disappearing angel.
Okay, so that's it for now. Just a little bit of live, cause yeah, because yeah. So that's our progress for tonight. That's our progress. Just only 30 minutes, man. Just a 30 minutes of progress. Okay, so let's have a quick, yeah, that's it. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so for now, guys. So for those who watch and yeah, who visit a little bit on the live, thank you so much. So if you want to watch it, it will be uploaded on the channel. So just wait a little bit, and I'm a little bit not so being not so well for tonight. That's why I will end this for only almost 40 minutes only. Okay, or maybe it will be 40 minutes before I end it. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much guys for watching, and if you like this kind of videos and contents, please do consider to like, share, comment, subscribe. Please hit that notification button for our next videos. Okay, I need to rest because we still have a duty tomorrow. Yeah, I have a work. I'm a teacher, so I need to wake up early, and then that's it. So I hope tomorrow I can start early so that we will have more parts that I can build. So the thing that it makes me late or drag on this build is the panel lining, because it's white. You really need to put those whites panel line so that it will give you the details. Okay, so thank you so much guys for watching again, So if you like it, just comment and subscribe and like it. And yeah, if you want to share it, let's go. Okay? So that's it. Good morning, good noon, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Jake De La Paz signing off, and Gabber Show signing off. That's it. Thank you and peace out. Bye.